Katie, if you want to go ahead and hit record. I see the record button is on, so we will get going. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our kickoff session for upcoming improvements to Enderly Park. Mecklenburg County Park and Recreation staff are excited to begin the process of working with you and your neighbors to identify improvements to Enderly Park that reflect your needs. Ultimately, we want to ensure Enderly Park is a vital and loved part of your community for many years to come. We wanted to hold this meeting at the park initially, but our recent health directive required us that we stay virtual for today's meeting. Given our improved COVID numbers in Mecklenburg County, we will be planning some in-park activities as we move into the spring. So during today's meeting, we wanted to discuss how this project was funded and share some of the history of Enderly Park. Most importantly, though, we want to hear from you. Today is more of a listening session to kick off the design process. We have a series of questions and discussion items that we want to share today that will give you a chance to help direct us in how we improve Enderly Park. And we will wrap up today's meeting with an overview of the project schedule. So before we get started, I wanted to walk you through some of the features of our virtual meeting platform. It's important that everyone stays muted throughout most of the presentation. You'll notice a button on the bottom of your screen. It's in the shape of a microphone. Make sure that the red slash through the microphone shows up. That means that you're muted. If you have questions or comments throughout the presentation, please use the chat function. There's a button on the bottom of your screen to bring that chat box up. Later in the presentation, we'll give everyone an opportunity to unmute and share your thoughts or ask us questions. Please use the raise hand button if you would like to speak. So you'll get to that by hitting the participants button on the bottom, and then there's a little raise hand button on the participants window. So let's test the chat feature right now. Please type in your name and your favorite outdoor activity in the chat. We'll give everybody a minute to do that. Because I'm running the presentation, I'm just going to tell everybody, but my name is Bert. I'm Bert Lynn, Mecklenburg County Park and Recreation, and hiking is my favorite. We got another hiking. We got some swings. We got bicyclists. Walking the dogs. Disc golfer. I like that. All right. Very good. All right, let's move on. So last year, the Board of County Commissioners set aside $2 million as part of a broader equity initiative to use for reinvestment in park and recreation facilities. The funds that will be used to improve Enderly Park are part of that funding structure. Over the past 18 months, Mecklenburg County Park and Rec have been working on our new Park and Recreation Master Plan, which we call MEC Playbook. One component of the plan was a full inventory and assessment of all parks, greenways, nature preserves, recreation centers, and other department facilities. As a result of this assessment, each park and recreation facility was given a grade. This system will be used to help us prioritize investment and reinvestment moving forward. We completed an inventory and assessment of over 250 Mecklenburg Park and Rec facilities. We did this for a reason. It was because we know that we have a number of our facilities like Enderly Park that need significant investment, and that we need to begin the inequity that exists within our park system. This assessment provides us with a snapshot of current conditions for every facility, and it will be updated approximately every 2 years. Over time, this assessment will serve as a tool for benchmarking progress and prioritizing investment and reinvestment within our facilities. This process will provide us with an improved method of accountability by putting a critical eye on all of our facilities on a regular basis. So here's a quick summary of our grading system. We looked at the overall state of the park, the condition of park amenities, how well paths and trails in the parks are functioning, whether the park looks well kept, and whether or not the park is easily accessible for people of all abilities. Facilities that received an A tended to be those that most recently received significant investments. So these types of facilities will continue to see kind of our routine maintenance. Facilities in the acceptable condition received a grade of a B or C. These facilities are in relatively good condition, but are beginning to show some wear and tear that will need to be addressed soon. These needs will be addressed through our capital reinvestment program. Facilities in poor condition received a grade of D or F. These are facilities that are in immediate need of attention and significant investment. Enderly Park was rated a D, which is why we're moving forward with this project, using the earliest possible funding available to improve the park. After the inventory and assessments were complete, the results were compiled and sorted into a summary sheet based on the park classification. This image shows a summary of our neighborhood or local parks. You can see that Enderly Park received a D grade, and we'll go into some of the factors that led to that grade. Along with Enderly Park, the other parks that will be funded through the Parks Equity Projects will be L.C. Coleman Park in Washington Heights and the Tryon Hills Park in the Tryon Hills neighborhood. So let's begin the input portion of today's meeting. We're going to be trying a few new methods of receiving and documenting your input today. First, we want to get an idea of how many of you have ever visited Enderly Park. The pop-up has already shown up there, and so we'll give everybody a minute to make their selection. While you're doing that, I'll let you know that we've posted this same poll question along with some others on a project website. We'll be sharing that link with you toward the end of today's presentation. All right, so it looks like very similar to the meeting that we had midday today. We have a lot more folks that have visited than haven't, and that should not be much of a surprise. You guys are here because you care about your park. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the history of Enderly Park. So the large tract of land where Interleave Park exists today was purchased in 1953. So this aerial is from 51. You can see Enderly Road does not exist at this point. A number of the houses within the neighborhood around the park do exist. And Freedom Drive is basically a dirt road. So the larger parcel here was purchased in 1953. A secondary parcel was purchased in 1962. An interesting fact is the first park bond that was passed by the city of Charlotte was in 1949 or 1950, with the idea to build a playground in every neighborhood. At that time, the word playground was used to describe a park. Approximately 25 parks or playgrounds were built through that bond. The deed for Enderly Park requires that the 1953 portion of the property where the baseball field lies today always be used for a park. It should be called Enderly Park Playground. We believe that Enderly Park was a result of that initial parks bond. So when we move forward to 1966, this has been a park for about 13 years. We see that the baseball field has been developed, but there's not a lot more that we see in there other than the striping for a football field in the outfield. And a little bit more development has happened along Freedom Drive, which is now a paved road. Some of the shops along that road have appeared, and then we can see the outline of Enderly Road right here. Skipping forward to 1990, the basketball courts and the tennis courts were built in their current location, as well as what looks like a playground, which is below kind of where the shelter sits today. Since 1990, smaller improvements have been made to the park through our capital reinvestment program, which we used to call deferred maintenance, replacing the playgrounds, replacing the shelters, resurfacing the tennis courts. But no significant improvements have been made to the park since that time. Other park and recreation facilities near Enderly Park include Camp Green Park on the other side of Freedom Drive, Betty Ray Thomas Recreation Center, and Stewart Creek Greenway. So now let me introduce Darnika Waters, planner with Capital Planning, to give us a quick tour of the park.
Hello, everyone. I'm Darnika Waters, and I'll be giving you a quick tour. Let's start out with this graphic here. Enderly Park is located in the Enderly Park neighborhood near Freedom Drive. The park extents is bounded by Enderly Road and Coker Avenue. The park is approximately 8.5 acres, and the amenities consist of 2 tennis courts, 1 full court basketball court, 1 outdoor shelter with grill, and 1 multi-purpose field, along with various play structures within the play area. Next slide. Oh, I forgot to mention, it also has a walking loop. This here is an entrance, a picture of the entrance of the park. Now, we mentioned before that this park is a D-rated park, which means we need some significant investment. This entrance here is along, picture on the left is the entrance at Enderly Road, and the picture on the right is of Coker Avenue. And as you can see along the entrance at Coker Avenue, you can see that kind of bowl shape to the park, which the park and most of its amenities are lower elevation than the entry roads. Next slide. Now, the existing conditions in the park, there are some uneven and cracked pavement. There are varied uncohesive signage, and there are some drainage issues due to that bowl-like shape of the park. The park has been a recipient of some small improvements, like new play structures and outdoor shelters, as seen on the picture on the left and the right. Next. Also, as part of the past improvements, the courts have been resurfaced. The tennis courts, how they exist today, are not functioning as such. This is in part due to a lack of netting and also vandalism. The walking trail, as seen on the right, is a loop trail, and it's one of the main attractions for the residents in the area. The loop measures about 1/4 mile.
All right, with that, we're going to kind of get more into the interactive portion of the presentation. So we're going to ask a couple of poll questions, and I'll go ahead and launch this just to get an idea of, since most of you visit the park, we're wondering how often do you visit the park? To get an idea, is this your daily walk, or is this maybe you go once a month or once a year? And I don't know if anyone's on the phone, but if anyone can't see the poll that is launched, you can kind of speak up as well if you want to say anything about how often you visit the park. All right, we're almost done. We have 73% of people participating. Oh, we got up to 86. Okay. So I'm going to end the poll and share that with you guys. Most of the people on the call today visit more monthly, but we do have one person that visits daily and a few people that visit weekly. So we have a good range of people on the call tonight. All right, one more poll. So this is our last poll, and then the rest of it will be really more chat-based. The question is, for those of you that are called in, do you feel comfortable spending time at Enderly Park? And with this, we want you to participate in the poll. It's a yes or no question, but then also either raise your hand or type into the chat to explain a little bit about your answer. In the call, we had this meeting also earlier at noon today, and so some of the discussion around this was related to maybe there's not enough seating, or there was some discussion of lighting earlier, or just upkeep around some of the vegetation on the site. So participate in the poll, but then also raise your hand or type into the chat if you want to provide any additional information. Don't be shy. All right, we're up to 68% of participants. So I'm going to close out the polling and share that. So of the 68% of people on the call, 82% feel comfortable spending time at Enderly Park. Stop sharing that. So for the next couple of slides, this is where we just want more feedback from you guys. In terms of what I'm seeing in the chat, someone posted, "I've never felt threatened. It just needs some updating and some TLC. I'm always alarmed with possible dogs off leashes that could be in the surrounding neighborhood. I will if there is someone with me and not alone, so walking with a friend." Does anyone want to unmute and tell us a little bit more about your experience in the park?
Hey, this is the Santoros. We overall feel like during the day feel comfortable there. We go up there with the kids sometimes and play. You're right, the dog thing is a neighborhood thing, but it's one of my biggest cautions with little kids. But I do see it around the park and up and down Enderly Road every once in a while.
Yeah, this is John Littlepage. I take my dogs over there every once in a while for a walk. The thing that's a little concerning for me is early in the morning or maybe later in the afternoon with the lack of lighting. And then on the walking trail itself, the loop trail, there's a lot of overgrown bushes, shrubberies, trees that kind of keep the creek, little stream hidden. And I also think that's a security concern as well, safety concern while walking. Not so much for me, maybe with my dogs, but people who are out there by themselves with that overgrown shrubbery and possibly someone hiding there. Those are the two main things for me from a safety perspective. Outside of that, I don't have any concerns other than those.
Okay, thank you.
Hey there, real quick. I'm just joining in. This is Brian Armstrong. I live a couple streets over. I go over there later in the afternoons and evenings, and I agree. There's quite a bit with the dogs and the lighting, and then it's a little bit of a safety concern as soon as night hits. So there's a lot of concerns with like drug use and that kind of stuff. So I don't know. It's not necessarily like police enforcement, but there's a lot of people that do use that park to actually use substances. So that's a little concerning. Especially like I've seen parents with kids out there and they're trying to get their kids in like the minivans and stuff right at dark. So, we want to build this place up and have our kids go and actually use it. And it's concerning that early in the day or even at night, we can't use it,
Yeah. And so a lot of our neighborhood park facilities are kind of the dawn to dusk facility.
Yeah.
That's why you don't typically see a lot of lighting unless there's some type of reservable facility at the park. So there is definitely a typical change when the sun goes down.
Okay.
All right, Bert, I'm going to clear this screen and go ahead and move to the next slide. So I think this is a fun question. So if you could add one thing to Enderly Park, what would you add? And so again, feel free, it's a fairly small group tonight. So as you guys have been doing, feel free to unmute or to type into the chat.
I saw a post earlier from Keith asking for a skate park, please, but I don't know if that's his final answer.
It's my biggest request.
It's not a real answer.
No, it is a real answer. There's a lot of kids in this neighborhood, including myself, who skateboard. I think it would be put to good use personally.
Brian, did you have something to share?
I was just going to say, if we could actually utilize the park, because everything like the basketball court and the tennis courts are falling apart, and the baseball field, there's not really a baseball field. So, I mean, if we could get those just improved and add some more amenities out there would be great. I mean, there's people that want to use it, and the kids need to be using these things. I mean, the baseball field is nice, but there actually needs to be a baseball field. There needs to be more bleachers or a clean area and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I would even also recommend, I mean, I don't know the last time that baseball was even played at that field. But with the size of that field, the possibility of changing it from a baseball field into multiple soccer fields, or one soccer field and maybe a touch football, flag football type of field, to bring some sports diversity there, instead of just one baseball field. Make it two different types of fields.
Yeah, John, that's a really good point. Typically we don't program a lot of like organized sports in neighborhood parks, because we don't necessarily want to invite a ton of traffic coming into the neighborhood. It's more meant for local use. There is a little bit of some practice that goes on there, and I believe the staff at Betty Ray Thomas hosts some events on the ball field there as well. I do know that the outfield is striped for soccer at times, but your point is well made, and that's kind of what we're thinking about. Brian mentioned, I think, fixing what's there, which is something that we've heard multiple times already, earlier today and online. But the one thing we do have to think about is, if we add to what's there, then most likely we're going to affect something that's already in place. So I think if we took away, let's say, the baseball field, then it really opens us up to doing a lot of different things, or new uses within the park. So keep that in mind too.
No, I think that's a great point, a valid point, for sure. But just to add on to some of my thoughts, as far as more picnic tables, more shelters, or maybe a bigger shelter than what we have out there right now, would be great for picnics and things of that nature. I mean, I think I speak probably for everyone. Anything is better than probably what we have right now, which is limited out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I saw someone add signage in there, wayfinding signs that kind of tell you where you are and where you go, and that all look the same.
Also, too, in the chat, Bert, somebody said change the tennis courts to pickleball, and this was actually something that came up on the call earlier as well. And so we actually, Bert, you were breaking up a little for me. We actually have some, we're in the process of resurfacing some of the tennis courts over at MLK Park, if you guys have been there. And so until we can finish the resurfacing, which is later this spring, and we have temporarily striped those tennis courts for pickleball to try to test it out, see if there's any demand in the area. So for the pickleball fans on the call, go check out MLK Park as well.
You know, one other thing, if we're talking about things to add, and this is more from a safety side of things, and this may be there already. I don't recall ever seeing it, but a kind of a emergency call box for someone who's there in the park and needs emergency or, you know, some sort of assistance. I think that would be a nice thing to have, you know, for anything that may happen there at the park.
It actually came up on the noon call as well. A request for emergency call box. We tend to find that, you know, most people have cell phones in their pocket, and that's their number one go-to in case of emergency, is they're going to pick up their cell phone and call 911. But we know that not everyone does. So that is something that came up and was a point of discussion on the noon call, to think about, you know, if there was a place in the park or at the entrances for some type of call box.
Just to add on to that a little bit, sometimes things like those emergency boxes are more just the fact that they're presented there, and it's easy to access. So it's almost like having a police presence around. You know, just having that presence around can keep people out of a certain area that may be up to no good or something like that. So I've been to a few parks that have those emergency boxes, and even though I have a cell phone, I feel that they're good just to have there just in case, because you never know.
All right, any other requests that didn't make it on the screen yet?
I know this is kind of on topic, off topic, but I mean, I don't know if we could look at like landscaping some of the sides or something just to make it nicer. You go over there and it's kind of depressing. You know, there's a lot of people that go over there and you walk in and you're like, oh, okay. You know, it's just sad looking right now, you know?
Yeah, and we've talked about that too, you know, whether we kind of focus on just landscaping and improving kind of the two main entrances, or whether there's points along, you know, the walking loop or some of the other areas that could definitely have better landscaping, also just more maintained. You know, there's some ivy and some invasives in the tree canopy as well. All right, let me save this, and then I'll clear the page and we can go on to the next slide. So this is kind of just open-ended, but is there anything that you want to share with us for us to consider in this design process? After we talk about this a little bit more, we're going to tell you about kind of the next steps and what to expect in the coming months as we move forward with the improvements. But is there anything you want to share about your experience at the park, what you want to see, what you hope to accomplish out of this project?
Katie, this is Keith. I was just going to add one small detail. It'd be nice to have a pathway that connects to what's the name of the street on the back side there that we turned into a shared street.
Okay.
You know, so you don't have to walk through the grass when it's soggy and muddy.
Yep.
Just to have a legit connection.
Yeah, I've run up that grass hill before a number of times. So yeah, that's a big need.
Yeah, it's good for training.
What about programs or events? Are there any activities you would like to do in the park or events that the community hosts that you would like to see in the park in a different way?
I'm obligated to say open streets.
Bring it to the west side.
I think one thing that would be kind of cool to have from time to time, food truck rallies, things like that. We've got so many local food trucks. Have them bring them into the park back there behind the baseball field, where the that second entrance is, and allow them to set up shop there. And that would possibly bring more people to the park. Let them know that the park is there, and see what there is to offer. And then also support some of the local businesses in the area with the food trucks.
Brian, I see you have your hand raised. Would you like to speak?
Oh, sorry.
I didn't realize we had two Brians.
Oh, sorry. I thought I do have something to say, but I won't.
All right, Brian White. So you want to
Gotcha.
go first?
I'll go ahead. I think that the park, really has the opportunity to engage the community a lot. Festivals, community engagement, sports leagues, everything. Also wanted to add, maybe you can make some sort of makeshift amphitheater out there as well. It's a lot of space, and I just wanted to add that in, and that was it.
I was just going to say, it is a great space. Like, it's a good location. There's a lot of possibilities. So, I mean, if it's like a petting zoo, or because we do have like a lot of even more urban kids that don't get to see things. So we can host like a lot of festivals or a lot of things. It's a great location. Parking's pretty easy. Like, there's a lot of potential that we could do.
Yeah, it's one of the more easily accessible neighborhood parks that we have in the system, and definitely eyes on. I think there's still some things that can be done to open up views kind of through the park. Going back to someone's comment earlier about the overgrowth along the edge of the park, along the creek there. But yeah, there's a lot of possibility, and the amphitheater comment has come up a couple of times, and there's some some hills within the park that actually set up pretty nicely for something like that.
This is Keith again. I just want to second that motion. I think the creek is such an underutilized natural feature for the park, and having some benches, some seating along down there, like you see along some of our greenways, would be nice.
Someone also posted in the chat community garden and clearing some of the poison ivy out there. So we have a number of community gardens across the county that are in very high demand. So it is something that we get a lot of requests for. And we do have some nice sunny spots in this park. All right, I'll go ahead and save this. And then Bert, do you want to move forward with the next one?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so our next step in the process is to take the information that you shared today, along with input that we received on our public input website, and any input that we receive in any pop-up events that we have within the park over the next couple of months. And take that and begin to come up with a couple of design plans. And in a couple of months, we'll come back to you. Hopefully, we'll be able to host an event kind of in the park, even if we're having to be socially distant. I think that's better than Zoom for sure. And we will share those different ideas, get your feedback, share some photos of actual kind of specific amenities that we want to have, and kind of the arrangement within the park, and get everybody's kind of seal of approval on that before we move into the final park design. We'll share that final park design later in the summer and finalize the drawings, go through the permitting process, and start construction late in the fall or early in 2022. Hopefully we can open up in the spring, but depending on the schedule of when we're able to start construction, at the latest we'd be done in the next summer, in summer of 22. So this is the funding is set aside for this. We're moving forward. This is only the first step in the process. but we definitely appreciate everybody's involvement tonight. We will point you toward the project website, publicinput.com/Enderly. On that website, you'll find recordings of the meeting that we had at noon today, as well as this meeting. We also have a few additional survey questions there that we didn't go through here tonight. And we're going to continue to gather information kind of through the month of March. So you've still got a few more weeks if you have any friends or neighbors who weren't able to join us tonight. We also had some folks that were involved in the noon meeting today offer to help distribute some paper copies of surveys. And so if you are interested in helping do that and spread the word, you can see my contact information as well as that of Katie Lloyd, Katie Daughtry, and Darnika Waters. We are all within the capital planning division at Park and Recreation. We would be happy to print off surveys and meet you somewhere and distribute those surveys if that's something that you're interested in helping out with. So with that, I mean, that's basically all that we had for tonight. We wanted to give you as much opportunity as possible to ask us questions or kind of provide your big ideas, and we'll take those ideas and start to work up some concepts here soon. So,
hey, Bert, this Kip, what's the budget for this set aside? How much money?
We've got $600,000 to spend at the park, and that doesn't include some of the overhead costs for site survey and design and permitting and things like that. So that's kind of the high level budget that we're working on right now.
Thank you.
Yep. What else did you have on there? Let's see.
There was another question earlier, Bert, about the assessments grades, and let me scroll back to it, and was asking if is there a map of all of the grades to see trends across the city. So I didn't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about MEC Playbook in that.
Yeah, so our consultants will be delivering the draft MEC Playbook master plan at the end of this week. And then in that there are trends that show up, and I'm going to go back to my list slide for just a second. So a number of our neighborhood parks are some of the older parks within our system. And so you can see right here, we've got 39 neighborhood parks that are D or F parks, far more low rated facilities from a neighborhood or small local park standpoint than with our larger parks. Larger parks are typically kind of outside of the, or farther outside of kind of the center city, but they're also newer. And a lot of those larger parks have been developed over the course of 2 or 3 phases, not necessarily all at once. So most of our larger parks are in good shape overall, but we had a much higher number of our local neighborhood parks that were rated more slowly. And we have a couple of maps within the master plan that illustrate that very clearly as to where those parks are. Katie, I don't know if anything else has popped up. There's something that just popped up in the chat.
Yeah, a question just came in the chat. Is there a way to get feedback from other neighborhood parks that have gone through this process? Get an idea of what they learned, things they wish they would have thought of in the concept phases, etc.
I've got good and bad news for you. You are the first, this is the first park that's going through this process. We started with Interleave Park. So we will be learning each step of the way. We will be able to share, and if you're interested, you can reach out to us if you want to see kind of some larger ideas on what types of facilities people across the county are looking for. We wrapped up about a year ago, statistically valid survey where we surveyed over 800 folks across the county. And you can kind of show you the results of that from a high level standpoint countywide, and then kind of zoom into certain neighborhoods. All right. Anything else? Anybody want to unmute and share anything?
Thank you so much for doing this. Greatly appreciated.
Yeah, hopefully it's the first of many steps in doing this, not only at Enderly Park, but a lot of our parks that have been underfunded over the years. So we recognize the need to reinvest in what we have while we also grow at the same time. But we need to put more assets into what we have for sure.
And I posted the public input link again into the chat, but you can also see it on the website. So visit that and provide your contact information. And anytime we have a project update, we will send out an email to anyone that's participated online on the webpage.
All right. Well, I thank everybody for coming tonight, and I can't wait to see you in person on a nice sunny spring day at Enderly Park. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you guys for all your hard work on this.
Yeah, thank you. It's great.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, thanks so much for the presentation.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we
Nice
can
to see you, Santoro family.
Can you hear us from all the way to your house? Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, Chase.
I think we should do whatever they say, whatever it costs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Melissa.
Biggest beneficiaries.
Is it homework time for the kids?
Bedtime.
Bedtime. Bedtime.
Yeah.
Good night.